What's going on, guys? VZ Duos here, back with another deck profile, and this time, as you guys can see from the title, we've got a variant of Fire King with us today, and I've been trying this out at locals. The Dinkabooey top definitely has been a major influence to starting to commit to touching on the Fire King engine again. And I tried doing a build similar to Dinkabooey's at locals. Um, and ultimately, my verdict that I can just say right out the gate is I believe you need your mulch armies and you need your impulses for the deck to work the way that he built it. Since I do not have those cards and I'm basically waiting for the mulch army reprint, I figured I'd go with some sort of alternative. So I tried just doing a pure build, and to no avail, it just wasn't working properly. And the major reason being is that I just wasn't seeing extensions. So that is what ultimately led to these extra engines that I added in to help facilitate other options of play, as well as to give myself that extra bit of extension that the deck would need to play through certain hand traps that can completely debilitate the deck's ability to play. That being said, this current build I have gone to locals with. I have gotten second place twice. Um, and pretty much player error has been the reason I've been losing since I got this build. And today's second place was just simply bricking with my hands, and I think personally making one bad choice with the prosperity kind of did me in. But I do have recordings for my matches today. It was a very small locals, and it's my first time recording matches, so I realized that one of my playbacks have a very bad angle of the game. The other one, like, barely gets in the scope of the game. Um, but I will upload those. We have 3 rounds again. First round was against the Odeon deck. Second round was against Blue Eyes, where I faced up against our my friend Jesse at locals. Me and him always have a thing that, like, oh, you're a stacker, you're a stacker. So you might hear that in the video. And while I was getting pretty bitter just because of how unplayable my cards were through his interruptions and everything, um, it was all in good fun. So take that video with a grain of salt. And then third was a interesting Centurion Blue Eyes build. And that's the one that I have the really bad angle on. But I'll go ahead and upload those following this deck profile just so that you guys can kind of see the combos and how the deck performs in action. But for this video, I'm just going to run through the deck and yeah, show you guys the spice and how I do things. So, start off with the Fire King engine. We got the 3 Ponics. We've got the 3 Alkanics. We've got the 3 Kieran. And then for my build, I opt to run 2 Garunics, 1 Arvada, and 1 Old Garunix. So the reason for this ratio lineup, these are your combo facilitators. The thing I don't like about Alkanics is you need to specifically have a fire in hand for it to pop off. So if you don't have a fire, the card's kind of dead. Meanwhile, Ponix is your 1 card. You search out the field spell searches out whatever else. So Ponix is definitely the more surefire entryway into your combo and the safest. But the Alkanics, it comes up when it goes crazy, and when it goes crazy, it goes crazy. But oftentimes, if this is all that you have in your hand and your opponent has a like an Imperm or an Ash, specifically Ash, then you sometimes get screwed if you don't already have, like, Kieran in hand or a island or a Sanctuary to get to the island. But that being said, I only ran the 2 Grunics because since I'm, spoilers, not playing the extravagances, I figured that I would rather see extensions to go into different plays as opposed to being so dependent on this. And while this is good, I just see very often times where your monster will get removed by other means, and your fire being on field is it getting destroyed doesn't really happen, and Garunix ends up being a dead card in hand. So oftentimes I want to kind of search this out as opposed to having it in a hand. So 2 of pretty much lets you see it very intermittently, and then it buries it to a point that you're not going to see it constantly, and just a second copy in case they banish the first. People are playing D-Shifter and SP, so having that second copy to cover when one gets banished is pretty crucial. This card always sucks to draw, but there are ways to keep facilitating this so long as it gets destroyed. But that's it for the Fire King monsters. Moving on into the very small, so this is just the monster lineup for it. 2 Black Witch, 3 would be too many. I don't want to see too much clutter as far as this engine goes, so the 2 is perfectly fine. And then I figured I'd run a little bit of Tri-Brigade engine, so I do 2 Fractal, 1 Kit, 1 Nerval, 1 Caress. So Caress, in practice, is the way to play around, like, your Ulcanix getting negated. It's a good way to get around that because of the Fractal, but it's, again, one of those cards where you'll need a second card to go with it. And in this case, you can't just go with any monster or any fire monster or whatever. It has to be a Tri-Beast. So this card never really ever came up in the tournaments, and honestly, I wouldn't mind cutting it, because this stuff actually facilitates very nice recursion to come back from, like, a really tough part in the game. And Garunix does help you reach this, as well as other cards, like the extra deck cards I'm going to be showing you guys later. But my ultimate verdict is I think I'm going to end up cutting the Caress. Because in concept it's nice, but in practice it just doesn't fulfill its purpose properly. Alright, so that's it for monsters as far as engine monsters go. Engine spells, 2 Sanctuary, 1 Island. That's all you need. I'm always so tempted to run either a second copy of Island or a third copy of Sanctuary, but you don't want to clutter with too many spells with this deck. A lot of your stuff facilitates off of monsters, whether they're the correct ones or you can bridge off of them for the correct ones. But this is fine as it is. This is pretty much your way of extending as well. 1 Skyburn to get rid of pesky cards. In today's tournament, it helped me get rid of the Chaos Angel and just kind of helps you punch through boards. So this is a very good card. I would like to run 2, but I feel like that would ruin my my ratios and kind of leave me with nasty hands, because 2 Skyburn, it's another card that it's very reliant on specific cards to be useful, and in this case, it's Fire King monsters being on your board. So I just keep it as minimal as possible and just kind of save that Skyburn for when it's really needed. 2 Wanted, 1 Deception, 1 Azamina. So this is pretty much Diabell 3 and 4. This is essentially 5, if you think about it. But this is the extension engine right here, and I can't tell you how many times this thing has single-handedly gotten me out of tight spots where, say that I had, like, Ulcanix and just nothing else to really play off of. Like, I had Ulcanix Ponix, 1 didn't work. This helps bridge through all of that and still ends you up on something good, something that can stop your opponent, as opposed to just being, like, praying that they can't break you in the next turn, which that's already asking for too much in this kind of a format. But then we play 1 Pot of Prosperity just for consistency. So non-engine, triple Ash Blossom, triple Droll, double Veiler, double Nib, and triple Imperm. Ideally, I did the only the double Veiler just because of the fact that you're running the Imperms already. So ideally, you don't want too much of the same kind of stop, but honestly, at the rate that I've been going with this, I might consider taking out like a copy of Droll for a Veiler. But Droll being at 3 has actually proved pretty helpful for me. This essentially takes up the Fuelos or Impulse spot, and again, it works pretty good, surprisingly. But I would say Impulse would be the better card to put here. And what with the Diabellstar engine, you could actually play that card in the main deck, which is pretty insane. But this works out for me pretty well. It's just those off times, like, again, in my round 2 against a friend of mine, that it's just all hand traps and just nothing. But that's Yu-Gi-Oh! Those are just those sucky hands. So extra deck, Link 1s, Anima, and Almirage. This kind of runs with the Ponix, so that way you can use it under Sunlight Wolf, so that you can recur back a fire that you might have pitched off that you can make use of, like a Fire King High Avatar Kirin or an Ash Blossom. Lets you get those cards back and reuse them for the next turn. When you have 2 fires and a Ponix, you just pretty much link off into the Sunlight Wolf, and then link off the Ponix into this, add back the fire, continue on with your Princess, and just go on from there. Just like Dinkabui, converts hand traps into fire for your island and stuff. It doesn't come up that often, but I mean, it has in a previous tournament that I was in. I had to do that twice and with great succession. Cross Sheep is, like I mentioned in my video on the Fire King Snake Eye Azamina. This card is absolutely incredible with the Diabell Azamina engine, just because of the fact that you can pitch something for either your Black Witch or the Deception, and use this to summon it back for free. And it could be anything from a Ponix to an Ulcanix to one of your Tri-Brigades. Anything, you could special summon those back and then just play. And I can't tell you how many times the Tri-Brigade engine works very nicely with this, as then you could use the Tri-Brigade monster to then give you another body, and then you go into the Princess using this and the Tri-Brigade, because this is a beast, so you can still use this as a link material. Or I've had an instance come up where you could get the Black Witch out, you can get, like, say like a Fractal, use the Fractal's effect to summon the Cross Sheep, and if your opponent negates it, then you just say, okay, I'll link off my Black Witch and my Fractal. Since the Fractal got negated, I can still use non-Beast War Wing Base as links, link into this, and then do my fusion play, where I'll fusion summon to this zone, use Cross Sheep's effect, bring out something that I didn't use before. So this card is just absolutely incredible, and I say that if you're playing Azamina with anything, you should be playing this as a staple. This one's a flex spot, Pit Knight early. This should probably be SP Little Knight at this point, because I've never seen a real purpose to using this, other than just as a conversion, or to get Princess off field. Conversion for that, and then to have a free body for Princess to pop. Plus this returns after being destroyed at the end phase, so pretty cool. Other twos, Hida, barely go into this because, let's be honest, we're not in fire format anymore. It's not 2024, it's 2025. We're out of fire format and looks like we're going into light format. I might change this to the Lina, but the chances of me having a light are very scarce to where I'd be seeing myself in those kinds of situations where that would be the most viable play. So ultimately these two are kind of like a flex spot here, but the Hita is still nice to have just in case. You just never know. Do a little Chimera and Sunlight Wolf. So these are your recursions. This is your infinite cycle. As I've said in a previous video when I ran Snake Eye Fire King, this with Arvada and Arvada and Kieran are just infinite recursion that lets you just keep cycling and cycling. You cannot lose a grind game once you get all three of them in circulation. Because what you're going to end up doing is you have a Kieran in your hand, pop a fire, or pop like Arvada or something. Arvada will bring this back. This will destroy it end phase, or your opponent will destroy it. They'll then add you back the Kieran that's in your graveyard. It'll get to grave at some point. If not, you'll probably have like two in rotation. You'll just keep cycling one out of hand, one out of grave, back to hand. But that's ideally how that works. And then the Kieran can pop itself to bring back the Arvada to do it all over again. But these cards are incredible for your recursion. 2 Princess, because this card does everything for you. It grabs anything out of your graveyard for free. And having that second copy really helps when you're getting into the late game. Just so that way you could just keep comboing off like crazy. So the generic links, and then these are our Tri-Brigade targets. Surprisingly, you're not seeing Omen, and that's because the one time I did play it, and in any instance that I'm going into my Tri-Brigade plays, I'm not really seeing any reason to do it. It's just, it requires so much compared to what this deck offers, and you need to have those cards in your grave for the sake of having infinite recursion against your opponent. As much as I'd like to banish high avatar Garunix, it's just such a good card to keep you in the game. Like, you really don't want to banish something like that. So usually I'll leave this to just the Tri-Brigade engine, or when I've gone through multiple copies of Ulcanix or Ponix, or maybe I'm on my second Kieran with one left in deck, I could banish one of those. These will help you get to your Princess. This lets you mulligan. This gives you so much control over the board. This lets you take a Princess that's already on your field after you summon it with, like, Kid or something. And lets you remove the Princess and bounce something of your opponent's for free. Now Princess is in your graveyard. This can let you dodge things that cards like the Fiendsmith Fusion can negate. So that's an option too. But ultimately, these are really the only 2 options that you really need for the Tri-Brigades. And then, of course, you do have these 2 as options as well. This if you have the Azamina plays to follow up on. This if you want to destroy a fire. This can add itself back, so you could do it like that, or you could even just add it back with Sunlight Wolf. So that's it for links. Azamina's just the 2, Murcielago, Illa Sylvia. Murcielago is your extender and your wanted search, and you usually do this if, again, you're trying to extend into something, or if you are trying to get a wanted that you didn't have initially, so that way you can actually start going into your, you can kind of mulligan out a card that way. So this is good for extension, this is good for control, which is a perfect dynamic with these 2 cards in any deck, honestly. I see that engine has the ability to splash itself almost like the Adventure engine did like 2-3 years back. And then the last of our extra deck is 2 Garunix Eternities. So ultimately, like you could see, 2, you don't have to worry about banishing these off of Extravagance, so you could just run 2 ofs of these cards. You don't need to clutter your extra deck with all the same thing. You could give yourself a little bit of variety by doing this set of, this kind of synergy. But anyways, that's extra deck. We'll go into the side deck. 3 Lancia, 2 Chaos Hunter, 2 Ghost Bell, 2 Ghost Ogre, 3 Droplet, 1 called by, and 2 judgment. So side deck feels like it's constantly in a state of work in progress. So the Lancias are amazing against Malice. Everybody knows that. Chaos Hunter, same thing. The thing is I see why Dinkabui played 3 of this, but the one thing that always makes me so weary about this card in particular for my build is just the fact that you have to expend a card to get onto board, and then if your opponent has a triple tactics talent or a thrust, they can thrust for the talents and then use the talents to take Hunter, and then everything's just live again. You've lost 2 cards to them. In my matchup against Malice a few tournaments ago, the Chaos Hunter would be good in the sense that if your opponent shifters you, then they cannot be setting you to banish everything on your turn 2. But again, if they play talent and thrust, which I feel like Malice players should be playing, you're kind of screwed if you use this. So I say you do this only if you have any of the Molcharmies to go with it, just so that way, they, especially like Fualos, that way they can't go without linking this off and giving you an extra draw for free. But ideally, this helps you to get around the shifters, and all the times I played against Shifter, though, the deck has been surprisingly resilient against it, and the Lancia kind of carries you, as well as, like, Veilers and stuff, so, these are fine, but I want to experiment with some other things. Ghost Bell, it's just kind of one of those, rogue deck coverages. We do have a guy that plays the, Buster Blader Blue Eyes, and this card will shut down their ability to get the Buster Blader onto the board, the fusion. As well as we have a player who will kind of switch in and out of Labyrinth every so often. So I'm just doing this for local call, but I feel like there are those niche applications that can come in handy with. Same goes for Ghost Ogre here. Ghost Ogre will help you to pop the what's a card called for the Blue Eyes, the trap card. God, I can't think of it right now. But this helps you to pop that, so that way they can't get the effect, and then you essentially clear their board. This is good for other things too. Like I said, I faced Centurion today, so ideally it would be good against them, depending. Triple Droplet, this is for playing against like Ryzeal, or something that plays Omni-Negate boards or Unbreakable boards. This helps you break through those. This helps you break through and get around Dweller. So that's why I put this at 3. I used to have like 1 of this and 2 Eclipse, but 3 is the call just for those niche scenarios, and just to be able to lock your opponent from responding to your card negate, and then just negate something for free. I did use, so like these 2 were good against the Buster Lock. It shuts that off completely. Called by to stop hand traps, but honestly, it's just like talent where it never comes up when I need it, and then it shows up when I never need it. So this feels like a flexible card too. So between these, I feel like changing these out for something else, and then even like the Ogres and the Bells, I feel like there needs to be something a little bit more impactful. If I had the cards and if they were cheap, I would probably put Impulses in place of some of this stuff, particularly Chaos Hunter, I would say. And then the 2 Solemn Judgments is just to negate and say your opponent can't do something at all. That being said, this is my deck profile for, I want to call this deck Fire King Tri-Azamina. And I gotta say, it's enjoyable playing this deck. It does really rack the brain. It's just a matter of, sorry I'm stuttering so much. It's a matter of just mastering this deck, honestly, because I'm still trying to get familiar with it. It's just like how I looked at Tri-Sprite, is that it can really pop off if you know what you're doing, because your opponent doesn't know what you know as far as what potential plays that you have following their follow-ups or their interruptions. Um, so this deck is kind of like a mixed bag of tricks. So like I can't tell you how many times the moment I play a Tri-Brigade, it catches people off guard. Then they see the Azamina core and they're like, what is this? Um, but it synergizes well. I'm probably going to focus more on the um, Azamina engine. So I'm probably going to bump up the wanteds to 3 and take the Caress out for that. But I'm still going to figure out those ratios. But everything else feels correct. It's just I have to hope to not brick and get some sort of proper extension going. But that being said, guys, like I said, I'll be uploading some gameplay of me playing this deck. 3 rounds at my locals. Like I said, I'm still working camera angles. Funny enough, my first round was perfectly recorded. The other one was kind of low and skewed, so you're barely seeing everything that's on the board. And then the last one cuts off, like, I want to say, this much of the playing field. So I'll upload it anyway. Hopefully you guys can understand what cards are being played by name. But I'll improve on that for the next time I go to locals. But that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this deck profile and hope this might have drawn some attention to people that were interested in trying something a little bit different with Fire King. I had another person at locals that kind of agreed with me, where they just did not feel like Dinkabui's list worked with them consistently enough. Because, I mean, again, personally, I just see too much clutter. But I think the biggest problem is that we just don't have the Mulcharmies or the impulse to draw all these resources, so we don't see bricky hands, and we don't have this wonderful negate that stops a special summon outright, like Nibiru or White Binder or whatever the case may be. But anyways, feel free to leave comments. Let me know what you guys think. And feel free to ask some questions about this build. But yeah, like I said, there's a lot of flex spots, so this deck is still a work in progress. But this is VZ Duelist sharing my version of Fire King for right now. And again, I'll try to get some more local play with this deck. And then I hope you guys enjoy watching those. So VZ Duelist signing off. Have a good one, guys.